Encryption is needed to stop hackers from stealing data when it's sent over the internet. You write that in your Cambridge Information Technology 9626 exam, and you feel pretty good, right? Well, that exact sentence routinely scores a massive 0. We're cutting all the fluff today because there's a huge disconnect between what you think the examiners want for Topic 1.3 encryption and what they're actually grading. Welcome to this Masterclass Explainer.
Seriously, think about that answer for a second. Read it over in your head. It seems perfectly fine. I mean, it makes logical sense, it identifies a threat, it even names the internet as the medium.
But yeah, a giant 0, not one single mark. Why? Because it completely lacks the specific, context-driven analysis and the structured reasoning that Cambridge examiners actually demand. You're losing marks not because you don't understand the technology, but literally because you just don't know the exam game yet.
Section 1. The fatal encryption exam mistake. So why does the standard revision approach completely fail you? Let's look at what this fatal mistake actually looks like under the examiner's microscope. And this isn't me guessing, by the way. This data comes straight from Cambridge principal examiner reports. They repeatedly flag 3 massive traps that students just keep falling into. First, using the wrong analytical approach for the context. Second, completely forgetting proper presentation and formatting conventions. And third, this is the big one that caused our 0-mark disaster a second ago, giving generic answers that aren't fiercely specific to the scenario in the prompt. Look, if the prompt is talking about a hospital, your answer better breathe hospital data, not just general internet data.
Section 2. Unlocking the method mark strategy. Okay, so how do we actually fix this? Well, we have to stop just memorizing textbook IT facts. The absolute game changer here is what we call method marks. You see, examiners aren't just scanning for a final right answer. They're actually awarding points for your process. They want systematic analysis. They want evidence-based reasoning. They literally want to see the journey of your logic. If you just jump straight to the conclusion, you bypass all the marks they were desperate to give you for how you got there.
Section 3. The examiner's analytical framework.
To guarantee you capture every single one of those method marks, I'm going to give you the exact 5-step procedural framework that top AIM students use to completely dominate these papers. Now, pay close attention. In just a moment, I'm going to reveal a specific terminology trap hidden in the syllabus that will cost you absolutely everything if you aren't careful. But first, you need the procedural framework that makes spotting that trap incredibly obvious.
All right, here is your elite blueprint. Step 1. Deconstruct the question line by line. Step 2. Extract the relevant data straight from the text and tables in the scenario. Step 3. Select your analytical framework. Step 4. Execute your analysis with crystal clear working and notation. And Step 5. Present it all using the correct IT terminology and strict formatting conventions. This right here is exactly how you prove to the examiner that you have a deep, connected understanding that works in totally unfamiliar contexts.
Okay, here is that terminology trap I promised you earlier. Principal examiner reports explicitly state that candidates constantly confuse core terms right when they're trying to execute Step 5. The absolute biggest offender? Mixing up encryption, which is the reversible scrambling of data using a key, with hashing, which is strictly one-way data verification. If you use these interchangeably, your whole analytical framework instantly collapses in the examiner's eyes. So always define your terms clearly before throwing them into your extended responses.
Section 4. Flawed versus top-band answers.
This brilliantly illustrates why we really need to look at a direct comparison to see this 5-step framework in the wild. Let's look at the difference between a flawed response and a true top-band response. When dealing with critical analysis, a flawed answer just lists independent facts. It's super superficial. But a top-band approach? That student uses comparative connectives to highlight both similarities and differences. They support every single comparison with concrete evidence from the scenario, and they draw real conclusions about their relative importance. That is true higher-order assessment.
Let's break down exactly what that higher-order thinking looks like structurally. On the one hand, you have a student saying, encryption secures the file. That's descriptive, it's generic, and it gets 0 marks. On the other hand, we apply the PELJ structure. Point, data in transit is vulnerable, evidence, packet sniffing techniques, explanation, encryption scrambles this data. Link, this prevents unauthorized reading even if intercepted. Judgment, therefore, it is essential for the corporation's legal compliance. By layering point, evidence, explanation, link, and judgment, you elevate a basic, simple sentence into a highly analytical and evaluative response that examiners absolutely love.
Section 5. Spot the error challenge.
Okay, time for an interactive checkpoint. It's your turn to step into the examiner's shoes. Read this student's answer about a hospital's encryption setup. The prompt asks to evaluate its effectiveness. The student wrote, "It is highly effective because symmetric encryption is fast and keeps patient records safe from hackers." I want you to mentally pause for a second. Think about our framework, the method marks, the specific context, the evaluative judgment. Predict exactly where this student just dropped their marks.
All right, let's see how you did. If you grabbed your mental red pen, you probably noticed some fatal flaws. First off, the student completely failed to evaluate any alternatives, like comparing it to asymmetric encryption. Second, there was no justified recommendation. Third, they barely touched the specific hospital context. I mean, sure, they said patient records, but what about the life or death urgency of accessing those records in a medical emergency? And finally, the whole thing is still way too descriptive rather than genuinely evaluative. They just stated a basic fact instead of weighing the actual pros and cons.
Section 6, the diagnostic exam cliffhanger.
So here's the thing. Mastering the methodology, the PELJ framework, and the terminology, that's actually only half the battle for your Information Technology 9626 exam. Consider this brutally honest formula. The perfect answer to the wrong question equals 0 marks. Seriously, even with the flawless 5-step method mark framework and even with absolutely perfect encryption terminology, if you answer the wrong type of question, you are still walking away completely empty-handed.
And that leaves us with a massive unresolved problem. You now know exactly how to structure the ultimate top-band answer. But how do you decode exactly what cognitive domain the examiner actually wants from you? How do you know if they want a descriptive, an analytical, or an evaluative response? Well, that secret is hidden entirely within the exam's specific command words.
If you misinterpret just one single command word, your perfectly structured paragraph is entirely useless. To ensure you don't fall into this final fatal trap, jumping right into our next explainer on Cambridge 9626 command words is an absolutely mandatory next step to secure your top grade. Subscribe to our YouTube channel Ace the Exams at acetheexams_IGCSE to excel in your Cambridge examinations, and I'll see you in the next explainer where we decode those command words once and for all. Until then, ask yourself, are you just memorizing facts, or are you actually building the evidence-based reasoning the examiner is looking for?